Now, US President Trump did not define the borders of Jerusalem and expressed the US support for a two-state solution. So what does Trump's declaration actually mean? Clarifying that became the mission of one journalist during a State Department briefing this week. Take a listen.
What is the capital of Israel?
The president announced yesterday, issued a proclamation declaring the United States recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel.
So the answer to the question is Jerusalem, correct?
That's exactly right.
What country is Jerusalem in?
The president recognized Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel.
Does that mean then that the U.S. government officially recognizes that Jerusalem, the municipality, lies within the state of Israel?
There has been no change in our policy with respect to consular practice or passport issuance at this time.
We turn now to our panel, Mohammed El-Qassem, Mike Wagenheim and Owen Alterman. Owen, kick us off. First, your initial thoughts to that State Department briefing.
Well, Tracy, I admit I've been obsessed with this issue since even before that briefing, asking myself this question, which looks like a detailed, mundane legal question only for pointy-headed lawyers, but I admit I absolutely believe it's central both to the way we understand what happened and to the way things will go forward. What we just heard from David Satterfield is that Jerusalem might be the capital of Israel, because that's what Donald Trump said, but you ask him, and we heard him say, Jerusalem is not part of Israel. The United States still considers Jerusalem to be international. So, Tracy, if you're sitting at the Tmol Shilshom Cafe in West Jerusalem, having a hot chocolate and a nice cold winter day, it's a wonderful place to sit.
All right.
You are not, according to the United States government, sitting in Israel. And I think that this point has been lost on almost everybody, on both sides of the issue. And it's true, Donald Trump could change this with a stroke of a pen Monday morning if he wants to. But as we said, there's much, much, much less here than meets the eye.
All right,
I don't think it was lost on anyone. This just another proof that this administration lacks the vision and also the ability to look into details about every decision that it takes and the consequences that it brings with it. I mean, this is amazing that President Trump gives his announcement that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Then he says, but I leave the issue of the border of the city to the two parties. Then why did you even make this announcement? Why don't you leave it as many other previous U.S. presidents and the international community and the two parties involved have said that the Jerusalem issue with other issues should be left for final status negotiations. He just threw the region into chaos with his announcement, and it's an announcement that many within Israel, many Jews inside Israel and outside, didn't really favor this announcement.
Okay, Mike, then to you, what weight does this declaration actually hold then?
Take a look at what's going on around the West Bank, around Gaza, around the Arab world. It holds symbolic value, certainly so, and it's a key sticking point now in future negotiations, if there are any future negotiations with the Americans. Donald Trump's point was, listen, let's put on the table what we already know and what's not up for negotiation. And that's been the Israelis' push toward Trump since he took office and even before. Jerusalem as our capital is not up for negotiation. It's ours, period, point blank. We can talk about other things. Jerusalem, take it off the table. And Donald Trump did just that. But again, there are so many different circumstances. When Mike Pence flies here next week, his itinerary that's put out by the office of the vice president will say Jerusalem. It will not say Israel.
Sure.
I think one reporter referred to it in that press conference with David Satterfield. He said, basically, what you're telling me is Jerusalem is an amorphous blob.
Okay.
And I think that really paints a picture.
Here on I-24 News overnight, we were talking about this with a panel of Palestinians and Israelis, and a former lieutenant colonel in the reserves from the IDF says it almost has empty calories. It actually gives nothing to Israel, but he said it takes nothing away from the Palestinians. I suppose that's a question to you, Mohammed. What do you say to that?
I disagree, because everything here in this region is about how it's interpreted. By even making this announcement that it may on the ground may not have any tangible gains by the Israeli government in terms of, so what? Israel has always said that Jerusalem is its capital, but no other country has acknowledged that. So it's not like what this person said, this reserve colonel said. I think it holds a huge implication on the negotiations, but also on how the Palestinian Authority president, Palestinian officials, and also on the larger scale, how the Arab countries and Muslim countries will react to it. Let's not forget that Jerusalem or East Jerusalem with its Muslim or Islamic holy sites, it's under the auspices and the protection of the Jordanian government. It's not even under the auspices of the Palestinian Authority. And King Abdullah of Jordan wasn't even consulted by the U.S. administration on this issue. We're talking about Jordan that has historically been a great and close ally to the U.S. They have been marginalized and totally ignored.